She's April.
And she's Molly.
And we are
the Book Besties. I moved to Florida to get away from my small town and ended up finding a very delicious sailor.
We're never going to get an I love you out of Will Trainer.
It's better than that. She doesn't need a man to heal.
She is such a selfish twat.
I have such a crush on him.
That's because you took her man.
This started as Molly having a dream.
Oh, what a perfect book for this day.
Yeah. We're starting on a somber note.
Yeah, but I mean, after yesterday, I kind of need that.
You need
crutch
the somber
to lean
note.
If you're watching us on YouTube, you can tell I have no makeup on and I'm wearing my glasses. Yesterday was a rough day for our family. Mm-hmm. We had to send our eldest dog, Rocco, who was 15, across the Rainbow Bridge. Mm-hmm. We learned that his heart and his liver were failing, and he wasn't going to make the trip to Maryland with us. So to be able to take his ashes with us without having them have to ship them, we had to do it this week, which was rough, but I'm handling it.
I mean, pets are people.
Rocco was my first kid, right? I got him as a really immature 22-year-old. He fell in love with Matt, and then he kind of fell in love with the other animals they brought along, and he tolerated the kids, and he's just been there for every grown-up decision I've ever made. So
right.
So
yeah, when we put Bella down, I grieved her and pretty hard.
She was a sweet girl too,
and I didn't even like her, and that I was grieving her even though I didn't even like her because she was Tom's dog before he and I met, and when we were still dating, when he would be at on duty, she would climb in bed with me and pee on me. She really legitimately hated me.
That's because you took her man.
I did. I took her boy from her. Man. And as I started, when I got pregnant with James, we really bonded over that. She would lay on my belly and listen to him. I really know that she could hear him. But as much as she and I never really liked each other, I still grieved her because she was a part of our family. Yeah.
See, Rocco was very similar, but towards Piper. When I was pregnant with her, he loved the belly. The belly was warm and soft, and he loved that. But when the screaming I brought the screaming thing home. And he just hated that baby. And it wasn't Piper's fault. It was just the way Rocco was perceiving it. And he hated me for that.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't take any food I brought home. I gave him, I made him steak one day. Chopped it up in little bits, put it on the floor, and he looked at me, looked at the bowl, and walked away. 20 minutes later, Matt put it back down. He ate it. I was like, oh, okay. When Piper was potty training.
I see you, Rocco. I see you.
When Piper was potty training, he would go and poop in her room during nap time to make us think she was having accidents.
I remember that. I remember him doing that.
And poor Piper, man. He just...
she
just got the short end of it. He ignored Livia, but Piper was the intent of his mischief. Yeah. But it's very much his,
he was a crotchety old man.
Well, and to make drama, right? When we had to have put Jack down, and he was just getting so old. The weekend after that, he had 2 seizures out of nowhere. To remind us that he was still there. The vets found nothing wrong. He was completely fine. His blood work was perfect. Just seizures. Oh. And then, for him to his heart just to start giving out in the middle of us a month's notice move is very much him.
Yeah.
He has to be the center of attention all the way to the end. It's facts.
I'm really sorry for your family. I'm a fan of grieving the way you need to grieve and wallowing in it as long as you need to. I lost my grandmother. It has been
good long year time.
Yeah, she died in 2010, so it's been 12 years and I am still grieving her.
I left Arvina in
I know, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah. And I still, just and you feel the loss differently. Like with Jack, it's been almost 2 years since he passed away, and I will still at times go to call the dogs in from outside, and I will call his name along with the others out of habit, and I'm like, whoa, it just, you forget, right? The out of habit you forget, and it's just it's hard.
Well, I'm really sorry, Molly.
Me too. And I mean, but obviously it was his time. And Papillons live to 20 years max, and on average they live to 10 to 12. So 15 years is a good long time for him.
Yeah, that's a good long life for any dog, really.
Right. I mean, he was elderly.
Yeah. Well, we've set a tone.
Let's go to a sad book. Let's go into the sad book.
Sad tone, but it makes sense because today we are talking about Me Before You by Jojo Moyes.
I have some feelings about this book.
I don't actually know if I'm saying her name right. If it's Moyes or Moyes. I just always say Moyes.
I always thought it was Moyes.
That's what I thought. So that's what we're talking about today. And like, for those of you that this is your first episode ever joining us, and you're like,
I'm so sorry.
This is
this is not the way to start with us.
This is not how we normally are. We are more of like a comedy podcast that like also includes
don't worry,
books.
There'll be humor here, but it's going to be dark today. It's going to be real dark humor.
So should I start with a synopsis? Get us rolling?
Synopsis.
Okay. I love you with that synopsis.
I love you.
All right. Want to know something funny? I couldn't remember how to spell synopsis when I was typing our notes, so I just wrote summary.
I mean, after Tom gave us a hard time on, I almost said Guardians of the Galaxy.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
On Hitchhikers. I mean, it's in your brain. I get it.
Symposium. He's so
Whatever,
funny.
Tom. Whatever, Tom!
All right. 26-year-old Louisa Clark has never been anywhere. She's never done anything. She lives in a small world in a small town in England with her parents, sister, grandfather, and nephew. But when the owner of the cafe where she's worked for 6 years suddenly closes, she finds herself taking a job as a companion to a quadriplegic 30-something man named Will Traynor. Unbeknownst to Lou, Will, who has already attempted suicide once, has given his parents 6 months and an ultimatum at which that's not what I put in my notes, but that's the word I meant. and an ultimatum at the end of which time he plans to head to Switzerland to a clinic for physician-assisted suicide, where he will end his incredibly emotionally and physically painful situation that resulted after he was struck cross the street by a motorcycle. Lou has zero experience in caregiving, but is hired by Will's mom as a last-ditch effort to make him want to live. Will has a medical caregiver named Nathan who provides all the actual assistance Will needs. Lou and Will do not start out well because Will sees right through his mother's plan, but as time goes on, the two form a bond of companionship and finally love. Aww, it's so cute for a book that destroys you.
It really does. You know, and I won't lie, this was like a third reread for me.
Me too. I think it's 3 or 4 for me, yeah.
And Bailey has a lot of feelings in the background I can hear.
Yeah, she's in the backyard living her best loud life.
Whatever makes her happy, man. Let her live it.
Do you know that she moos when she hears sirens?
Yeah, my dogs do. Yeah. My dogs howl.
Sounds like she's a cow mooing, not howling. She sounds like she's
amazing. I need a video now.
There is one. Tom's taken one.
Okay. Well, I need to see it.
All right.
Now the besties need to see it.
Okay.
But what was I saying?
No idea.
The book, the rereads. Okay, so I have blocked out the very end of this book. Every time I read this book, because it's trauma, right? Like,
trauma, baby.
Your brain pushes like depression and sad things back. And I remember that this is sad, and I know he eventually dies in this book, and it's very tragic. But all of that, I remember the whole book minus that ending every time, and it's like, oh, thanks, brain. Thanks, brain. So,
I feel a lot of things about this book. I think I read it for the first time for our book club that's not pod related. We have a book club we've talked about before. We are not sharing that with fans of the podcast. That's that's
and we've said in the past, if you guys want to join a book club,
we would love to host one for you all.
We would love to create one. We'll do one on Facebook or something, but it's just... But this is our private life. And we could stays our private life.
We can do Instagram lives where you guys ask us questions directly about books. We could do that, but like this particular one is sacred to Molly and I. Right. It's separate from this
because it's always it's a thing.
It's been around for a long time,
and it's our thing. So you need to buzz off.
I don't think anybody's asking to join, but but this book I read it for the first time because of that, and I've read it a few times since then. I've listened to the audiobook and read the physical book. This time I read the physical book again, but I have actually listened to the whole series as audiobooks, and I think the narrator for the audiobooks does a pretty good job. But I don't ever forget that that's how it ends, but each time I find myself wishing that it would end differently.
Yes.
Like,
because maybe Will loves Lou. You know Lou loves Will. Mm-hmm. And you want love to be enough.
I know. I do. And
and
this book came out in, let's see, what year was it? 2012. And still, when I read it, just when I read it recently, I was like, maybe this time it will read differently. Like it's going to change magically.
Like in print, the book has changed itself magically.
Mm-hmm. That's not how things work. All right, so can we get into the questions? So I kind of did what you did a few weeks ago. We had an episode where you had more bullet points than you had questions. And I kind of did like a combination where I did like bullet points and questions. So I don't know what this is going to look like. Who knows? Fuck it. Let's do it.
Throw it into the fire. I even wrote some off of because as I listened to the audiobook, Audible, # not sponsored, allows you to leave clips and notes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So when I get to a point, I will leave a note on the clip. Mm-hmm. And so I go back and write my notes from that. So
I have a lot of notes on this book on Goodreads from my Kindle edition because I now own 2 editions of this book. Mm-hmm. And we have linked my Goodreads before. If you want to follow me, you can see those things that I have to say. I do write more thorough reviews, and it's just my thoughts, and it doesn't include Molly's. So if you want just my view, I don't know why you would. Molly's points are usually really funny. So anyway.
Yeah, but nobody wants my sarcasm all the time.
I do. I want it.
That's kind of why we do this.
That's true. That's why we do this. All right. So I want to start by talking about Lou's family. This family has a complicated dynamic. What are your thoughts on this family?
I have a lot of feelings, and I see some mirroring in my own life with this family. Mm-hmm. While Lou is the eldest, she is treated like the baby.
She's treated like a mature
baby for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And I got that a lot growing up, but that was because of my ADHD and just my maturity level as a kid. And Jessie always got treated smarter than me and more mature than me. And I mean, sometimes it was warranted, but not all the time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that rolls over to adulthood. Yeah. And that is exactly what happened to Lou, is happening to Lou.
Yeah.
They are still treating her like this airheaded child, even though she's growing and maturing. And like the way her family always subtly puts her down.
Yeah.
I hate
it so much.
Like they need therapy. All of them. Lou needs to get out of that house.
Yeah.
Terribly, because that is emotional abuse. And and she does not deserve that. Yeah. And I mean, everything that the family has either goes towards her sister or keeping the family alive, which is understandable because, I mean, we've all lived paycheck to paycheck. We know what that feeling is. But to treat Lou like she's a cash cow and nothing else in that family, it's gross.
And she's not the one that's the cause of the problems. It's not her fault that her dad lost her job.
No.
It's not her fault that her sister got pregnant.
Knocked up.
Right. Yeah. Like, they're not her fault. And I mean, I get, like, to me, it makes me think of that, the song Surface Pressure from Encanto.
Yes.
Like,
oh my God.
Give it to your sister. Your sister's older.
She can handle it.
She can handle it, right? And I feel like that's where Lou is. Like, she's the one with all the family secrets, and she's the one with all the pressure.
Yeah. You want to explode. I mean, and like, even Patrick, he's a
terrible boyfriend.
He picked up on the way the family treated her and goes, oh, this is how we behave, and just jumped in on it. It is just...
I mean, there's definitely a lot of character growth for Lou in this book.
Right, because she realizes she's worth more.
Right. It's inspired by Will, but I don't think it's directly because of Will.
I think, there's a lot that happens. And I'm sure you have it.
I have more questions about it, but
yes.
My take on this family is that they're just awful. I really, really hate how her dad talks about her.
Right.
And I like
she's thick and mentally and physically.
Yeah. And I like that the movie tones that down a lot. We'll talk more about the movie later, but one of the things I like is that it tones down how her family really talks to her. I mean, you get glimpses of it, but it's not it's like bad. Like, it's bad.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know.
So rolling into Patrick, so that's Lou's boyfriend. They've been together for 6 years. He's super athletic, and frankly, he's really jealous of Will and the amount of time that she spends with him. So what do you think of this about the dynamic of Lou and Pat's relationship? Like, what do you think about their relationship?
I feel like we don't have a full picture of the relationship. We're jumping in the middle of their story.
We're jumping at the end of their story.
Right. But honestly, I don't see how they ever became a couple. Right? Like, they seem like two completely different people. And I get it. It's a small town. So you date who's available. And I grew up in a small town, and you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. Right? And...
or you join the military and find somebody else. I mean, although you did find somebody who was also from your small town. Just
right, but he also vanished and ran away too.
He was in a different context, yeah.
But he was definitely, like, not a cousin, which helps in my small town because there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those back home.
I moved to Florida to get away from my small town and ended up finding a very delicious sailor. So, I don't have no regrets.
None. But I don't know how her and Patrick even got started. And I think because Lou's life is about just staying in her comfort zone, in her safety zone, Patrick became a part of that. And even though she probably sees it, and she probably realizes, hey, look, this isn't going anywhere. We've been together 7 years. He hasn't proposed. We're not moving in together. None of these things are happening. But to rock the boat and change that would break her. And there's a lot, I personally think Patrick has a lot of maturing to do.
A lot.
Because obviously there was valid reasons for him to be jealous of Will, but his jealousy was way pre Lou's feelings.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And, like, his behaviors towards it was just ridiculous. And
he is very childish. And, like, okay, so you watch This Is Us, right? So Toby and Kate had the storyline of Toby lost weight and Kate didn't. And, like, he got fit and she didn't. And, like, that put a little strife between their relationship. And I guess that's sort of what happened here. Although I would not describe Lou as overweight. She's curvaceous.
She's medium size. Yeah. That's what my
she's
size
normal
group is
people.
Called.
She's normal people size.
That's what my size group is called. If you were a 10 to a 16, you were medium sized. We're
average. Yeah.
Average. Medium.
But I definitely think that if you've been with somebody that long and you don't even want to move in with each other, like,
that's a big thing.
That's a huge red flag. Like, this is probably not a relationship you should be in. I do think when you get in your comfort zone that maybe, like, that would have been hard to get out of that. And we're going to talk about in the next question some of the trauma that Lou faced. And so maybe that's part of why she stayed in the comfortable zone. But Patrick was never going to change.
No,
he did his changes. He did his changes. He lost his weight. He became a fitness man. And that was his changes.
Sorry,
Running man.
Yeah.
And that was his changes, and now he wants to be that. And I honestly was shocked he wasn't having an affair with one of his running people.
I think I have a feeling
they sort of allude to it because he says something about when
one of the girls. Yeah. I think that's on the edit room floor somewhere. Mm-hmm. I think that probably was originally a part of the storyline and the writing, but when she gave the book to the editor, he's like, "There's too much going on here. You need to cut one of these storylines."
That story isn't as important as the
right. Which I think Will's sister wasn't necessary. And I think that could have been on the cutting room floor as well. But
I was really glad they cut her out in the movie because she wasn't so unnecessary. Yeah, it wasn't.
It's so not necessary.
I agree with that.
So not necessary.
That's
actually she gets a bell because that storyline's unnecessary. Okay. So unnecessary.
Okay, well, I had her in the notes to talk about later, but we will not.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. All right, so side stories. So I have 3 side stories I want to talk about. And the first one is what happens to Louisa that keeps her in her small town, which is that she is gang raped, essentially.
By these boys.
By these college-age men at the castle. In the maze at the castle.
Wow, that's traumatic.
And she's supposed to be going to Australia. And instead she cancels her trip and she kind of just changes everything about herself. She no longer is the girl that she no longer
wears
trying
suggestive
to be,
clothes. What she thinks
she's trying clothes. Right. She's trying not to be desirable anymore.
Right.
She wants to be who she is and that's it. Do you feel like this story was necessary to the overall story of the book?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Defend yourself.
There has to be a reason for Louisa to stay.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't seem to care she cares that her parents are struggling, but she is brighter than that small town. That is very apparent from the moment we meet her. She is joyful. She is a happy person. She is obvious. It is obvious. She is different from everyone else that is enjoying staying there. So you're telling me that this child that sees the big in life and probably wants to explore that big, but is afraid to for no reason, they need a reason.
No, I completely disagree with you. I do not think this was important to the story. I think it actually took away from it. They eliminate this storyline from the movie, which I think was a good choice. I think it's a bolder and stronger story if the reason Louisa doesn't ever do anything is because her family beat it out of her.
Right.
But she never saw the potential in herself until Will came along.
We also needed that storyline to see how terrible her sister is. Because her sister blamed her for it.
Her sister is pretty awful. And in that situation...
Her sister goes, "This is your own doing. You did it to yourself."
And then tells her not to tell anyone.
Right. We also need this story to show how much of a piece of shit her sister is.
But I think you could get that from other aspects of Trina. She's just not a good...
she's a terrible sister.
She reminds me of a character from the book we're going to talk about next week, The Royal We, which is Lacey. She reminds me a lot of Lacey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it was necessary.
Lacey is the sun, and we're just all revolving around it.
And that's what Trina is. And I didn't think it was necessary. I feel like the stronger story was if it wasn't something that happened to her, but the things that happened around her. The only person that knows about the rape besides Lou is Trina, and then she tells Will. That's the only people that know. I think
she also needs that to help Will bond with her, right? I think it's important for a couple of things. We need to see why she's staying. We need to see her and Will bond. And we also need to see the full extent of how terrible Trina is.
When we get the revelation, when she does actually tell Will, his first reaction is, "You don't need me to tell you that wasn't your fault, right?" And I think that was the first time that she actually felt like maybe this wasn't her fault. That is the bonding experience. But I just didn't think we needed that layer in the story too. There were so many reasons for her to be beat down.
I think it was her extreme trauma next to his extreme trauma. While they're different, it was something for them to bond over that others couldn't understand.
Well, this is an interesting one for us to talk about, because usually when we don't agree on something, we end up yelling at each other. And I have to say, we've handled ourselves very well.
Well, and because this is a very sensitive topic.
Yeah, for sure.
It is a very sensitive topic. And
it felt extra.
Nobody wants rape written into a story.
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
But I think it is important to be talked about, because, I mean, and I'll put the stats up. I'll put a whole link in about rape. But the number of women and men who do not report being raped
is a lot.
It's a lot. And it's because
but there was no resolution with it. Putting that in there got no resolution. I don't think you need to bond with somebody because of rape. Like, that doesn't, I mean, that's trauma bonding, sure, but like, I just don't feel like that was I don't know. I don't know. I think we're going to move on from that, because I think we're
spiraling.
Both, yeah, and I think we both have valid points.
Right.
So
I agree.
I can see both sides of the coin.
I can see how the story would work without it, because they made the movie work without it.
They did. They absolutely did.
Jojo was a part of the movie. Mm-hmm. She participated in writing the script, which I when I saw that, the rewatch I had of it, I was like, maybe she just used this for final edits. Which makes complete sense.
That's funny. All right. So Mr. Trainer's affair. That's another one of those side stories. Was this necessary?
I don't give a shit.
I agree.
I don't give a shit. Yes, he is disappearing, and it makes trouble for Louisa between Louisa and Will's mother, which Louisa doesn't blame the father. She just takes the blame, which I guess, yes, is necessary, because there needs to be that tension between Louisa and his mother. Yeah. But I don't fucking care.
No, I didn't think it was a good inclusion.
I don't fucking care.
They got rid of that from the movie as well. And I actually really liked the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Trainer had each other to cling to as they were grieving the loss of, in the movie, it's their only child.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a much stronger
child in the book.
I thought that was a much stronger story to tell than he's gallivanting around town with somebody else.
I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Trina in college, like Trina going away again to college. Is this a necessary story?
Yeah. Because it's creating more drama at home, especially with the whole bedroom thing. Like,
oh, she's so fucking selfish.
She is such a selfish twat. And
you aren't even home. Why does it matter?
And, okay, that child, first and foremost, they baby that boy. He is 5 and he's still sucking his thumb. And no judgment if your 5-year-old is sucking your thumb. But there are reasons that a 5-year-old would be sucking thumb, behavioral issues, that kind of thing. But he is treated and written like a
baby. Like, you think he's much younger than what he is.
Right. And he is written as a normal 5-year-old.
Right-ish.
But the thumb sucking and the way they treat him, it is just, it's written poorly.
I cannot
issues with the way
how
that baby
can
is
you
written.
be so fucking selfish that you would kick your parents who are in their 50s, out of their own bed to take their room because it's more comfortable for Thomas, for your son? Yeah. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's your baby. I get it. But suck it up or don't come home on the weekends. Like, it wasn't a requirement that she come home at all.
No. You need to go.
That was a choice.
Go. Fucking go. You've set up a life there. Go. You don't have to come every weekend. You're just making trouble.
If you want to be independent and you want to move on with your life and you want to, restart and recharge, do
every day do that shit on their own. Yes. Why are you acting like you're the first person ever to do this?
I think that drive there also helped push forward the narrative that Pat and Lou's relationship was not good. Like, why wasn't she just choosing to be there with him? Like, why is Will having to offer her a bedroom? Like, I think that's why we need the Trina and college story.
Right, because it pushes that narrative that, Pat panicked. That's the only reason that boy offered her a room.
Yeah, he was feeling really jealous. And that's the other reason why I think maybe he was having an affair. He was really trying to clutch on to anything he could at that point.
Well, and he said, it was his words exactly. Well, we're 7 years in. What do you expect?
Yeah.
Like,
guess we would have done it anyway eventually. Like,
he's saying it's like, I've put in the time.
Yeah.
We might as well do it.
Yeah.
You know?
You're not raising a thoroughbred. This is a relationship. You're not, like, raising it up for racing. Like, that's not what this is.
It's not some beautiful art you're working on. It's not like it's this big project you're doing. Yeah. This is a relationship.
If you're in a relationship so that 7 years down the road you've changed somebody, you're in it for the wrong reasons. You can't do that.
Right.
That's not the reasons. You got to love people where they are as they are.
Right. And okay, I saw this on TikTok, actually. Mm-hmm. This TikToker goes, what is one advice you would give to someone that's getting married? Mm-hmm. And this chick goes, look at the person you want to marry right now. Mm-hmm. Not the potential you hope they are, not the potential you see they are, the person they are right in front of you.
Right.
If you can be with that person the rest of your life, then you should marry them. But if you are hoping for them to change,
not based on physical appearances, based on who they are as a person,
who they are as a person, right? Like a collective person. And she goes, if you're hoping for them to mature into something or change into, or you think you're going to be able to mold them into something, this is not the relationship for you.
This is not it.
And that's 1,000% correct.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You need to accept people at their face value.
Right.
And if you are hoping, and this pertains to friendships, family, relationships, emotional, like physical, the whole kit and caboodle.
Right.
Like,
do
not expect people to change. Do not think they're going to change. Do not hope you can change them. Mm-hmm. You need to hold people at what they give you.
Right.
And Pat has given her a self-centered blob, right? And I think she's drawn to Pat because he's like her family.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. What about you? What do you think?
I mean, I'm totally on board with you. I completely agree. I all the things you just said. All of them. Mm-hmm. I
said a lot of things, so
I agree with all of them.
We'll have to rewind the tape back to make sure I said them right.
I agree with all of them. All right, so there are some chapters in the story that like interrupt the main story, which is told from Louise's point of view. We have 3 chapters told by 3 different characters.
I have this in my notes, the POV issues.
Yeah, so Camilla Traynor, which is Will's mom, gets a chapter. Nathan gets a chapter, which is his caregiver. And Trina, of course, Lou's sister, gets a chapter. And I agree with you. I did not like this.
The only one I liked was Nate's. He's the only one.
I think with Nate's, it's just funny to get like the male perspective of what's happening. But I like how when they come back from the wedding, he's like, they think we don't know, but we know.
Right. But Nate is the only one I feel like was necessary. But if we only had Nate's, it would have been weird.
A disaster.
So to me, while I have issues with it, it's either all or nothing. But
to me, I think like this is where like the movie is able to remove that because like it wasn't necessary, but you can see people's point of views in the movie in a way that you can't in a book. I just think like they did it Jojo Moyes did a good enough job with the conversation with Miss Traynor that Lou overhears, understanding what Miss Traynor was feeling. Like that wasn't necessary for her to have her own chapter. And of course that chapter has a lot to do with her husband having an affair. Nathan's chapter was cute because it got the whole they don't think we know, blah blah blah. Trina's was I just really don't like her as a person. So
hate Trina.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. So I didn't think it was necessary. I thought it took away from the narrative.
Right. Now, I want to play devil's advocate when it comes to Mrs. Traynor for her POV. We're getting histrionics with hers, which I think is important because we're not getting that from Lou talking to Will. We're not getting that from Lou interacting with the trainers.
But you could have written it differently. Like, it didn't need to be Camilla's chapter. We could have had a conversation with Lou and Camilla. And then we could have gotten how Lou felt about hearing this.
Camilla is so aloof. We're never going to get her opening up to Lou.
But what a good chapter that would be. What a good chapter that would be that she had a little bit too much brandy in her tea and got tipsy and told Lou the things.
Honestly, I don't think we would have gotten that from Camilla till after Will's passing.
But that would have been fine. That would have been cute.
I think we would have gotten histrionics at the end, and it just wouldn't have worked in this editing.
Have you read any of the sequels? Because this is a part of a trilogy.
I started the second one, and it couldn't hold my focus.
No, we'll talk more about them later. I've got some more discussion about them later. But she doesn't do this in any of the other books. They're all from Louisa's point of view. So I don't know if that her editor
she got really bad.
I don't think her editor could talk her out of it the first time, but the second time was like,
after they released them for the first book and she got terrible feedback about it, she was like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. I think it takes away from the story. I mean, I see your point that it would have been, nice to know like the history of everything, but I don't think it was necessary. That's not what the story is.
No.
Like this book is still not really that long.
No.
But it still has parts that could have been eliminated and have been shorter.
It is such a solid book for such a short book. You know what I mean?
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So the anti-bucket list: horse racing, picnics, walks around the castle, movies, concerts, holiday. Do you have a favorite of the anti-bucket list?
I like their last trip together.
I mean, it's sacred, right? That last trip is where it's all happens,
While the horse race is really sad, I love the end with the footballers where she convinces these rugby guys
he's a soldier.
He's a soldier, and you can feel Will's depression. But it is such a you get to you understand Louisa to a just a little box by then.
She's headstrong. You can give her that. She's not going to give up.
No, and for her to just coax them and to this whole thing, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
I think my favorite one is the concert they go to. Will's friend is in an orchestra, and they go to the concert, and I think this is the first time that you really see how how Will feels about Lou. He's good at hiding his feelings for most of the parts of the book, and I think she doesn't really give into it until later in the book. But that moment after the concert where he's like, "Can we just sit in the car for a little longer? I just want to pretend for a little longer that I'm a guy who went to a concert with a pretty girl in a red dress."
Yes,
that is adorable to me.
It is adorable.
What a great moment. And at that point, I think you think, oh, well, maybe she is changing his mind. Maybe he is seeing, this is a life he could have. Of course, the last holiday that they go on, when they go on the big trip.
But, oh, God, it's so heartbreaking at the end.
It's so heartbreaking.
But it's just...
I love his honesty with her, though, where he tells her, this is a life that I know I would love, but it isn't the life that I want.
Right.
This isn't the life I had.
It's torture for him, right?
Yeah.
And he is in extreme pain every day. As a person lives in a minor amount of pain every day, I couldn't imagine having the ability to wake up every day in that much pain.
And I didn't really realize that someone that's quadriplegic that has no use of I guess it's stupid of me or ignorant, but I guess I just didn't think that they had pain because I thought they just didn't have feeling. But they do make that distinction in the book that not everybody who's a quadriplegic has pain, but Will happens to.
Right. And it's it's a damaged nerve thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that there is... Yes, he went through a massive trauma, but the pain he's feeling is ghost pain, right? It's a reminder that the things are there, and the body is reminding him it's there. But the only way they can make him remember it is by triggering this pain, and it's just it's awful.
Right,
it's awful.
Do you think that Louisa was right to try taking Will on adventures to change his mind? Was that the right thing for her to do?
I think she was trying to remind him who he was. Mm-hmm. I think the trainers, instead of hiring Louisa, should have found him a therapist. But
I think they probably had already tried that. But
I don't know. After Louisa came along, they probably should have tried again. But
like I
don't know.
I don't know that it was her place, but I feel like I would do the same thing. I'm a fixer, and I feel like Louisa's like that too.
But the trainers put so much on Louisa. Mm-hmm. They put all these hopes and dreams on her, and just hoped.
To be fair, they both didn't do this. Mrs. Trainer did. Mr. Trainer was kind of like...
Near the end, Mr. Trainer was, like, hopeful and pretty much told Louisa to do what she wanted.
Well, his story, because of the affair that he was having, was very interesting because he was basically saying, I don't want to lose my son, but if my son does this, then I can leave my wife and I can be in this relationship that makes me happy.
And I can finally be happy, right? Which is, like, gross.
It's so gross.
It's so gross.
All right, so let's talk about the wedding. So Will's ex-girlfriend marries his friend. And Lou and Will attend the wedding. Was it appropriate that they went to the wedding? Like, was it... What do you think?
No, but it was hilarious.
It really was.
And her not knowing... Okay, I feel like this is a British sin. I'm not even a Brit, and I know Pimm's have alcohol in it. How did this woman not know Pimm's had alcohol in it?
Yeah, I
feel like this is a faux pas in Brit world, but I'm not a Brit. So if you're a Brit and you're listening to this, message us. Tell us if this is a faux pas.
Listen, I lived there for 6 months. Everybody knows Pimm's have alcohol in it. Like,
okay, so Louisa's just dense. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know why. I thought that was dumb. I don't know if she was questioning it because it was like it didn't taste like normal Pimm's. I don't know, but I don't know. So do you think this is the first strike? Try again, April. Is this the first spark of love at the wedding?
No, I think it's the haircut. Or the birthday party when he brings her the bumblebee tights.
I can't remember what order it happened in because I think the concert was the first time that I really felt like it wasn't just
the haircut became
affinity for her. It was like a real
I think
love.
The haircut and the shave was first.
It was so intimate. That was a very intimate scene.
Right. And for him to just concede that to her was it feels like that was the first time he broke his wall to her. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the domino that started Will falling in love with her and him accepting Louisa as is and seeing who this joyful, bright person is.
But on the other hand, I think that was the wedding was the first time Louisa felt it.
But I think that's
I think beforehand. Yeah, I think beforehand it was a job and it was she
cared about him, and she knew how,
but
she was very
after that wedding, there was such a turning point in their relationship where it was
there was no
even Nathan,
there was no denying,
Nathan's
there's no denying Louisa had feelings after that.
Yeah. So one of my favorite minor characters in this book is the MP that they sit with. So I just want to talk about her for a minute.
I love her so much.
I love her. She is quintessentially British. I just love her.
But you know who I pictured? Jane Lynch.
Why is that accurate? Why?
I don't know. Anyway.
British Jane Lynch, yes. Yep. She's offering Louisa an opportunity to do more. And I'm not totally certain that Will hadn't put a bug in her ear. We don't really know the whole story, but
right, because Will's Will.
Right. But I think that's the first time that Louisa saw a different life for herself.
Right. Because
I really think well,
I think it's the first time somebody outside of people that know her and are endeared to her were saying that they see something in her.
Right.
And I think that's why. Because this is a complete stranger. And this complete stranger's there is more for you in this world. And you look bright and smart. And I want to help you embrace that.
Yeah. So Louisa's character growth, there is a lot here.
So much.
I mean, by the end, do you think she's a different person or is she still Louisa?
I think she's still Louisa. I think she's matured, but I think I don't know how to explain this. Look at me. You have known me for
12 years.
Yeah.
13 years almost 13.
And in that time frame, you've seen me grow and change, but I'm still me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I am very much the Molly that was before the Coast Guard, but
Mm-hmm.
with some changes. I think she stayed true to who she was while
Mm-hmm.
still finding growth outside of herself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I
I hope
think
that makes
that
sense.
I think she did so much character growth in this book, and one of the reasons that I don't like the 2 sequels is that it really undoes a lot of the growth that she has.
Yikes.
Like the second book in the sequel, she's kind of aimless again, and she's almost lost all the money that Will gave her. And
Shit.
so, yeah, and then like she figures out a way out of that,
Uh-huh.
and it's kind of through another man, which I don't
That
love.
which doesn't feel Louisa.
It doesn't. She is better than that. She doesn't need a
Right.
man to heal.
Mm-mm.
Um, and then the third book, she really gets herself into a really fucked up situation, and it is a hard thing for her to overcome. And she does come out of it, and I'm not going to give any spoilers for people that want to read the next 2 books in the trilogy, since that's not what we're talking about here. But again, she doesn't come out of it because of herself. She comes out of it because someone helps her. And I just think that really
That doesn't feel like her.
It really undoes a lot of the character growth that she had in this book, and that bothers me. It bothers me. It gets to this. All right, so Will
Fix
and
your
Lou.
shit, Jojo. Fix your shit.
Will and Lou. They're in love. We've already talked about when we both think it started. So here's my big question. Does Will love her too? Because he never actually directly says the words, "I love you, Lou."
Yes, absolutely he does. I mean, Will very much is like his parents, and I don't think his parents say "I love you" either.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't
think
they
that
love
is
more though.
well, but I mean, they don't even say it to Will, right?
Oh,
so
it's
I
very
feel
British.
like it's very British, right? And I think it's just he showed his love the only way he felt like he could in the end, by leaving her a security net. Like he literally said, I could not leave this world not knowing you weren't taken care of.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the way he told her he loved her.
I agree with you that he loved her too, but I actually think he didn't want to. Like, I feel like him loving her complicated their circumstances even more.
1,000%.
But he didn't want to love her.
And he did anyways.
And had she never told him that she loved him, he would have never done anything to cross that line with her. Even though he wanted to, he would have never done it had she not sat on his lap and kissed him and told him that she loved him and she wanted him to make a choice for her. He would have kept it all to himself and gone to his grave without her ever knowing the wiser.
Yep.
Because he didn't want to hurt her. Like, he was already, like,
because he's accepted what his life was.
Right. To use a phrase from The Fault in Our Stars, he was already a grenade to the people who were in his inner circle. Like, he didn't want to be a grenade to her as well.
Right.
So is this real love, or is it love by circumstance?
I think it started by circumstance, but I think it was real love at the end.
I mean, Louisa makes a point in the movie that, like, I think it's probably also in the book, that, like, she would have been the waitress at the wedding. He would have been
1,000%
bridesmaids. Like, so I agree with you. I think it started as circumstance. Like, it started.
However, if she didn't have feelings and he didn't have feelings, Will's mother Camilla would have never begged her to come to Switzerland. She would have never went to Switzerland if it wasn't real love.
That was a big turning point for Camilla too, that she was like willing to say, we need you there too. Like,
because Will needs her. She knew at the end what her son didn't need. I mean, her son needs her, right? Because it's his mom, and we always need our moms, no matter, right? But he needed Louisa in the end. He didn't need his parents. I mean, he had his parents, but he didn't need his parents. He didn't need his sister. He didn't need Nate. He didn't need any of that. He needed to go to his final resting place knowing Louisa was okay. Yeah. And that was, to me, a sign of how much Will loves Louisa. Yeah. Because he couldn't do this without her.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just something I think we'll never, we're never going to get an I love you out of Will Traynor. Absolutely not.
Right. So I don't want to go too dark or too political, but I think we need to talk about this because
the death with dignity. Yeah, that's on my list.
It's such a central part of this book. So physician-assisted suicide, death with dignity, euthanasia, whatever you want to call it. What are your thoughts on this?
Actually, so I listened to this book while we were in Maryland looking at the new house. Mm-hmm. So Matt was actually listening to a good 2/3 of this book with me, and him and I had a whole conversation about this.
Yeah.
And again, without getting hyper political,
right?
I think this is my personal beliefs, and I think this. I could speak for Matt after him and I had this long conversation. I believe you should have the right to choose. Mm-hmm. And my body, my choice goes a long way in a lot of different political things. And I think it should be the same across the board. Mm-hmm. I think if this is your choice, being you're dying of cancer or you're a quad or you're whatever your terminal illness is, right? Mm-hmm. If the doctors have decided, yes, this is the path and the direction your body and life is going, they have agreed, like a psychologist, and I think if the medical people in your life have agreed that you are in a correct headspace and this is the correct path for you, I don't think we should stop people. I'm not saying we should let every suicidal person go just dive into this. Yeah. I think if there is a valid medical reason and a valid medical write-off, it's okay. And I understand that there is religious reasons that people don't believe in this, and that is understandable, but giving people free will all the way to the end is important to me.
Now, I totally value that opinion, and I'm not going to completely disagree with you. For me personally, I want that choice for myself. If I am Camilla Traynor and this is one of my sons, I don't want them to make that choice.
Right.
And in a million years, I would never, I don't think I would ever, I wouldn't even want Tom to make that choice. Like, I wouldn't want that. But I would like to be able to make that choice. I don't know that I would. Right. I don't know that I would because I feel like suicide is, it's not... I am not a Catholic. Catholics believe differently about suicide than I do as a Protestant, but I still don't think it's like what God would want. But I don't think God wants suffering either.
No. So. And this is not a judgment on those that have committed suicide. No, this isn't a judgment on if you've had suicidal ideations or attempts. We're talking about this specific variation.
In this case, like of where you are... what I actually thought of when I was reading this book? Do you remember the original Superman, Christopher Reeves?
Yes, absolutely.
So Christopher Reeves was an action star in the Superman movies.
God, his life,
and he became a quadriplegic after an accident where he fell off a horse.
Yes,
and seeing him deteriorate from a person, it was awful. And I feel like if this would have been an option for him, he would have chosen exactly what Will did.
I agree. And it's in the title, Death with Dignity. I think we all deserve, in the end, dignity. And getting to choose that direction, especially when you have no choice. Especially, can't be a quad, cancer, like I said. When it is a terminal illness,
right,
and your body is wasting away and you have zero control of what's going on.
Right.
This final choice should be yours.
I like that they gave the other side of the story because we didn't talk about this, but Louisa spends a lot of time in discussion boards for quadriplegics and their caregivers. And one of them that's in there who's kind of become her confidant, he said this is what he would have chosen for himself. Like, to go to
Switzerland,
Switzerland, to the clinic in Switzerland, and
he said,
I don't remember actually how to say it, but he said that's not what he would have picked for himself because he actually really loves the life that he has. It's not the life he would have imagined for himself, but he did love it. Right. But he is glad that Will is able to make that choice for himself, because there are no other choices that Will can make for himself. He can't even choose when he goes to the bathroom. His body can't physically do that. His body can't physically sweat. He has no control over literally anything.
I mean, he's gotten pneumonia 4 times in 2 years, and it's nearly killed him all the time.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah.
As someone that has no control over what her body's going to do the next day, now, I am not saying I'm anything like this. That is not what I'm saying. But as someone that has no control over what my immune system is going to do, I completely understand this need for control.
Yeah. And I think...
the betrayal of your body is one of the worst things a human can have.
Yeah. And I think that they drive the point home with the fact that Will was so active before. But I don't even think that you need that. Like, I mean, yes, it's great to the story that it adds to it that he's, gone the complete opposite way. But anyone whose situation has changed drastically, like that's... Yeah, so this is not really the same, but a few years ago, they found some deposits in my eyes. And they've been watching them, and so far they're not changing. And I've been to 3 different doctors about it, and one of the doctors was fairly convinced that it's actually nothing, that it's just because I have green eyes, and they're not very common. And so green eyes their pigmentation presents differently than the pigmentation in blue or brown eyes. And then 2 other doctors were more worried and, wanted to watch it. I had to deal with the reality that everything that I do personally is visual. I'm a reader. I'm a scrapbooker. I'm a amateur photographer. Like, all of those things are visual. And like they were talking about in 5 to 10 years time, which has already been like 6 or 7 years now, I would be blind. And what does that reality mean for me? And I just thought to myself, I don't know how I will do that. Like,
that is actually one of my husband's biggest fears, as his eyesight has been so terrible his whole life.
Yeah.
And it is now I need glasses, but it's not extreme like that. Well, and I can't imagine.
My eyesight has decreased as I've gotten older. A lot of that was pregnancy too. It really messes up all the parts of your body. Love my kids. For sure. Love my kids. They fucked up everything, but
y'all fuck shit up.
Yeah, right. My body has never recovered. So I mean, obviously that's a much smaller scale, losing your vision versus losing full control of your body. But like, to deal with the reality that this isn't the life you pictured, like, I understand why he feels the way he does. And I don't even know that I would argue he's depressed. Like, sure, he probably has his blue moments, but I think he's actually come to terms with the fact that this is not the life he wants. And there is a way to fix that problem, and to do it with dignity, to do it, under the care of a doctor. And I think, that's a decision that he needed to make for himself.
And so I think, and again, I'm not trying to get political, but I think that is an important statement in general.
Yeah.
And you should get that choice in the end.
And in this country, it is legal in some states.
There's an actual, I saw a documentary, I want to say it's on HBO about it. About Washington State and their death with dignity. And if I can find the name of it, I'll put it in the comments. Okay. But it's a really interesting docuseries or a documentary on what it's like for those that choose death with dignity and the families that go along with it.
Well, I think we're having a different conversation now in 2022 than they were having when this book was written. Because when this book was written, this was a real hot button issue.
Was.
Well, and in Europe, it was a big deal. It was like, you did have 2 varied sides of the aisle. It was, and we get both of those in the book. Luisa's mom is like, you can't be caught up in this. Like,
right. And in the book, they talk about pressing charges, and I mean, his mom's a freaking MP.
Yeah.
That really could affect her career. And
I think in the end, she ends up stepping down from the bench.
I mean, but she needs to take a break. She needs to find herself.
Yeah, she needs a whole new life after this is over. So my last question is just like, the movie. Let's talk about the movie for a little bit.
I would love to talk about the movie, actually.
Before we start talking about the movie, I want to say, originally, I was supposed to see that movie in June, the year it came out. It came out in June of 2016. And Tom and I had a date night, all planned. It was a Tuesday. We were going to go. It was the Tuesday after it came out. And that's the day Sam was born. So we did not go to see it in theaters.
Thanks, Sammy!
And a few weeks later, or a few months later, when it came out on DVD, we ended up renting it on Redbox. And now...
watching it at home.
I've now seen it quite a few times.
Same.
It's a movie that I put on, like, that movie and The Fault in Our Stars are, like, good cry movies. Like, when you need to cry, like, those are good movies to do it. But anyway, so is this good adaptation? Like, did you like the movie? What are your thoughts?
I like the adaptation. I like that she, as the author, was involved in writing the script.
Which I didn't know that until you just told us that. Like,
we can put the IMDb in the notes too.
We always do, so, yeah.
Okay, so another Mendelian effect. Mm-hmm. I thought there was another British actor that played her dad. Mark Williams that plays Arthur Weasley. For some reason, in my dome, I did too. Okay, if you remember him playing her dad, you need to comment, because I don't remember him. I remember him being in that film, and he's not in that fucking film.
He's not in it. No, but I have to say, I don't
remember him in that film.
I hope Nurse Katie doesn't mind us sharing this, but we were texting her
about the movie.
I was texting our group chat when I was watching the movie, and she said the movie fucked with her mind because it has Mr. Bates, who plays her dad. He's from Downton Abbey, and he plays Louisa's dad. Yep. It has the woman that plays Louisa. I cannot think of what her character name is.
She's from Daenerys. Yes. From Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, right.
The Mother of Dragons.
Right. Her Will is Finnick Odair. And then I wrote, of course.
The Impossible Girl.
Well, I wrote that one back. The Impossible Girl from Doctor Who is her sister. And then, of course, Pat is from Harry Potter. So,
man, Neville Longbottom looks fucking bomb, though, man.
I don't see it. Like, I don't get it. You put him in a movie with Sam Chaplin, he's never gonna be.
Compared to what he was in the end,
I know he looked a little goofy before, yeah.
But
it's definitely. I made the joke that Britain only has so many actors, and so
the island's this big. I mean, they have to recycle them, but
they really do.
I think it's one of my favorite adaptations.
I think it's one that it took out, because one of the complaints we often have in adaptations is like, it got rid of my favorite part. It got rid of all the stuff that I didn't like about this book. My
favorite scene in the book is the birthday scene, and they kept that, especially the line about she gives great sponge baths.
Yes,
and then it's just such a mic drop moment.
And his, what's his name? Nick, is Nick that's the caregiver? Yeah, Nathan. He says, "Oh, you're a bad man, Mr. T." Yes. The only part of that scene that I missed was that Granddad says birthday cake, right?
And it's chocolate mousse.
It's like the clearest day, and that's not what they end up having. And in the movie, they have cake. But I thought it was good. I think they did a better job of like getting rid of the stuff that annoyed me, and so like it made me really like the movie. I took issue, and I have to say this because I was going to complain about this on the pod, and then Katie set me straight. I thought the whole time I was reading the book, I pictured that Will had like a high back seat that like it had a headrest, and whenever I would picture him, like when Lisa talks about him turning into himself, I thought that was him like, turning into himself with that headrest there. But it turns out that because in the movie he doesn't have that high piece in all the scenes. And I was like complaining. I was like, this is ridiculous. And Katie was like, actually, no, that's accurate.
She scienced the hell out of it for us.
And I was like, okay, well, fuck. And she sent me a picture. So I will be posting that picture on our stories on Instagram, so that you can all, and probably stories on Facebook, so you all can see what Katie sent me that explains how the C5 and 6 back injury or spinal cord injury works. So,
by the way, thanks Nurse Katie for subbing in, even though you're not a part of the episode.
oh man, there's never a moment that Nurse Katie is not with us. Let's be honest.
Right. But no, I think it's a great adaptation, and
I do too. And oh my gosh, Sam Chafflin as
Sam
Will.
Chafflin. I know.
I have such a crush on him. Like,
he was perfect in that role.
Yeah.
And Emma, what is her name? Damn it. She was perfect as
her name's
as
not
Louisa.
Emma.
It's Emilia Clarke. Emilia Clarke. Emilia Clarke with an E.
Isn't Louisa's name Clark? Are you sure her last name is Clark?
It is. Emilia Clarke and Louisa Clarke.
Huh, that's funny.
But they're two different spellings.
Yeah. Right.
Which we can put the IMDb and you guys can fact check me yourself. But I think she was really good. And she gained weight for that role.
Did she?
Yeah. I remember her talking about it in interviews about how she gained a good 20, 30 pounds.
I liked how she smiles with her whole face.
I know.
She has a smile that like
eyebrows. Her little eyebrows. Her eyebrows are so expressive.
Yeah. But if I can find it, I will post it. I'll post a link. There's a video. It's a British humor thing where it's British actresses auditioning for the leading lady, and they're auditioning. Of
this movie?
No. It's the part is called Leading Lady. And it's Catherine Tate who is casting him. And I don't know if it's from her. She has like a comedy like show on in Britain. But Catherine Tate is casting them, and like the role is obviously very serious, and all of the actresses that are coming in, like you'll recognize all of them. They're all serious British actresses, and she's saying things like, well, you need to be a little bit sexier, and they're like, the role is somebody who's dying, and they're like, no, but you need to be sexy but also girly.
Like, sexy. It definitely sexy now.
and it's all the thing, like Catherine Tate anyway is just freaking hilarious. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, Catherine Tate is
get your shit together.
She's you would know her from The Office, but if you're a Who fan like Molly and I are, she was Donna. Dr. Donna. And so anyway, so she's very funny, and if I can find it, I'll link it below, because Emilia Clarke is one of the ones that's in it, and it's just hilarious to see how she does this thing. It's basically a play on sexism and like sexism in Hollywood. And apparently in foreign film academy as well, because these are British actresses. So. But anyway, I don't really have anything else. Do you have anything else? I don't either. Okay, so can we talk about what we're doing next week?
Yes, please.
So this is a new month for us. So we did Me Before You. Obviously, you just listened to it. And now we actually have 4 more books this month, because this May has 5 weeks in it. Yep. And we've been telling you for a few weeks that I'm going to be hosting all 5 weeks in May, because Molly is doing
unpacking
her big move. But next week, we're actually going to read The Royal We. And
I love this book so much.
By Heather Cox and Jessica Morgan. We may talk a little bit about the sequel. This is the sequel, The Air Affair.
Because we're forgetting shit.
but we're going to focus on just this book. And anyway, there were like 4 years or 5 years in between them writing that and the sequel. So I think it's okay if we don't talk about it. Then we're going to go to 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Mority. It's new to both of us, but we've both read Big Little Lies, right?
Yes.
We read that for our book club. And then we're going to read Opposite of Always. This is a YA love story by Justin A. Reynolds. And it's a YA love story, Opposite of Always. And it's kind of a sad thing, you know. I don't know. Maybe I picked sad books this month. I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right.
We're going to wrap out the month with Circe, which has been on my... This is by Madeline Miller. And this has been on my
TBR for a while, too.
Years. This has been on my TBR. I love...
Since it came out, I think.
Yeah, me too. I love Greek mythology. I really, really love it. I actually have Edith Black's Mythology, which is like the premier textbook.
Fancy. Yeah.
Mythology. And I've read through it several times. I just really love Greek mythology. And so I'm hoping to like this one, although I have heard that Song of Achilles people liked better, which is the one that she wrote after this. But we're going to read with Circe, and I'm just going to hope that I like it, because that's 3 new books for us. All 3 of those are new to us. So I've given us some work this month. And that's where we are. We only have this month and next month, and we wrap out season 2. We are almost finished with season 2, which is incredible. Thank you
also
all.
Exhausting. We love you guys, but
thank you all for sticking with us. Like, we have had some serious growth.
Yes, from season 1 till now. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And I'm amazed at the comments we're getting, at the reviews that we're getting on Apple Podcasts, not sponsored. And I love talking to all of you. People have been DMing us. We have some fantastic guests lined up for season 3. I mean, we've got a lot of big things coming up. So anyway,
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm really thankful. This started as Molly having a dream. Like, it's crazy.
I had a dream.
All right. So anyway, Molly, are you good? I'm good.
Next week, gang.
All right. Bye. Thank you for joining us on Book Besties. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The views discussed here are those of Molly and April, not those of anyone else. Today's book was Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. Your book besties are Molly Biggs and April Watkins, editing by Thomas Watkins, and music is Sleep Sweetly by Prigida. Don't forget to follow Book Besties on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. If you would like to contact the Book Besties, please email us at bookbestiespod@gmail.com.